Hello guys, thank you for tuning in to my channel. Today it's story time. So in a place called Devonshire or Devon in England, there lived a couple and they had children. I don't know how many, but of interest was a guy called John. So now one time over the summer, so you are walking and it was like a village of some sort. If you have come from the village, you know that setting of the village. So it's hot and they are walking with the mom and dad over wakipita huko kwa villages za watu, and it started raining. So you know when it was hot and it's now raining, you start running because either you don't want to be rained on, you are lightly dressed, or you have a cold, or you left your clothes on the hanging line and you want to go and hang them. But this time they run and they take shelter in a neighboring home. So in the village, people are quite friendly, and if someone comes to seek shelter from the rain at your place, you welcome them. So that is what happened to John and his family. And when they were seated in that house, a girl served them tea. And she struck or caught John's eye because she was weird looking. She had funny facial features. She was not smiling, and she didn't look happy. So it caught John's attention and he left it at that, but it didn't escape his mind. So when he went home, he kept wondering, is it something that was wrong with this child that she could receive assistance for? Is it medical? Why does she look so different from the way we look? Anyway, and because of that, he wanted to join a medical school. But there was a catch. He was working at his father's grocery store / pharmacy, and the dad did not want him to go and study medicine, so he had no choice other than working at the store and abandon going to pursue medicine. So his father dies and he goes and he studies medicine. Lakini the fee to go to study medicine was so high, so he goes and starts staying with his sister so that all the money he had, he could take it to pay the fee. And then he stays for free at his sister's house. And the sister was married. So one of those days when relatives are coming to pay them a visit, his sister-in-law comes to pay them a visit. And now this is your sister-in-law, and he falls in love with the sister-in-law and he marries the sister-in-law. So in today's world, that's like incest, because you cannot marry from the same family where your sibling has married. I mean, those are now your relatives, and that's a no-go zone. But for John, married the sister-in-law. And then when John goes to school, he's a brilliant student. He gets a gold medal for being an amazing student, and he also scores another award when he finished school. Then now when he finishes school, he had the interest of working in an institution for lunatics or idiots. That is what they used to call them. It was called a lunacy school or an idiocy school. And he wanted to work there because remember, when that day he was being sheltered in a house, the person who served him tea was a girl who looked weird, and he wanted so much to know what was cutting. So that is what drove him or motivated him to go and work in this asylum. It was called a lunatic asylum. And then he gets there, and the asylum was in deplorable condition. First of all, one room used to be fit. The administration that John found working in the asylum had run down the institution, and then they used to put one room had a capacity of 15 to 20 people. Now imagine yourself in a room, or 15 of you in a room, like you sleep there, you know, a lot of things, everything you do in that room, and you're 15 of you. When we were in campus, a population of 4 people in a room was overwhelming. Like arguments and quarrel used to arise each and every day. Now imagine 15 people to 20 with mental conditions, and we all know that beds one room cannot fit 15 to 20 beds. That is a deplorable condition. And then, now because they have been put in this room, they started, of course, hygiene levels, like there is no hygiene in that place. And so they started suffering from tuberculosis and also typhoid. And the worst thing about it is the mortality rate went high and people really died, children really died. But the worst thing about it is that that institution, corporal punishment, was the order of the day. So if you are someone who knows someone who has a mental condition, or you have a relative who has a mental condition, now imagine they have been taken to a house, and in this house they are living 10 to 15 people or even 20. They are beaten, like corporal punishment. Corporal punishment, it's a bad form of punishment because you are beaten like animals. And then the hygiene levels are next to zero because maybe some of these people would soil their clothes. And so that means that those clothes will not be clean. Probably they won't have a change of clothes. And then on top of that, they have tuberculosis, they have typhoid. Like, imagine that is the kind of environment that John was supposed to work in. Yeah. So at that point, when John now was walking into that institution, there was also a commission that was looking into the living standards of that institution. And so what happened was John was chosen as the chief physician because he lacked the skills or the expertise to work in an institution for people who are mentally challenged, but he was sociable, he was inspiring, and his Christian background also made him a perfect candidate for that role. So now John gets into this institution as the chief physician. So what does he do? He changes the board. He makes sure there is a new staff, and the rule for this new staff was hygiene was supposed to be a top priority. Then punishments were abolished. Good behavior was awarded. So if you behave nicely, you get an award. Bad behavior was called out. And then children who used to bedwet, because of course that institution had a range of children from age A to B. Bedwetting, they were woken up at night to go and pee. And then the mentally challenged people started now being shown the crafts, like what to do here and there, okay? So when all these things are happening, John is still conducting his scientific research. Why people suffer from idiocy, why people look, some people look the way they look. Remember, his goal is to know what was wrong with that lady who served him tea. And so he categorized the people who were in that institution to Caucasians, Americans, according to races. Ethiopians, there were 5 races. And he did a study on them. So he noticed that all these people who had this strange condition, they looked like mongoloids. Like they looked like they are from the same parents. As in, these physical features made them look like they are from the same parent. And why they were called the mongoloids is because people who are Mongolians, they kind of have a similar facial profile or something. So the facial profile of these people who had this condition were likened to mongoloids, having eyes that slant, having the nasal bridge being flat, like having a tongue that is heavy, a single crease on their palms, all these things. So now remember, John had gotten himself a wife when he was living at his sister's. So when he was busy studying these people, his wife, on the other hand, was gifted in art and music. So she used to teach these children how to play the piano, how to do crafts. You know, she was like the Florence Nightingale in this institution. So she had worked for a long time, and John approached the board and asked the board to pay her or to put her in the payroll because he felt that all the work she had done, at least she needed to be recognized in some way. But the management refused, and they said that women should volunteer, and volunteering was not paid. So basically, it means that this institution or this system at that point, it was around 1846, between 1846 to 1860 something, means that this system also upraised men and put women down, because I mean, the place of a woman was just to volunteer. She was not supposed to go and ask for money. And so over time, the relationship between John and the management started disintegrating, and that would see John go to ask for money to showcase the talents and the abilities of these children in Paris, France. It was, I think, a show or an exhibition of arts and crafts, and he was denied the finances. So what does he do? He quit. He resigned. And when he resigned, he decided to go and start a home of his own. He had seen this big white house, nice one, and he had the idea of transforming it into a home for people who are mentally challenged. So what this meant is he needed capital to go and start that institution, but he did not have the money. So what does he do? He had a lawyer friend. He went and asked him to help him secure a mortgage so that he can start this home. And his lawyer friend, helped him. And in return, he called this home the No-Mansfield Home. So this home was supposed to be a shelter for those people who are mentally challenged. And those days, people who were mentally challenged were really seen as a burden to the society. They lowered one's stature and class, because in the 1800s, it was all about background, where you come from, your class, your family, you know. And having someone who was mentally challenged was lowering, like, it made one's dignity lower. So when John got a mortgage and now he has set up this home, he eyed the children of the rich people in the society, lawyers, doctors, teachers, police people. And actually his first batch started with 19 children. And it picked up because everybody could pay just to get rid of their child who was mentally challenged. Yeah, and that is how John started his home. And now this white house that he had transformed into a No-Mansfield Home, it had a farm. It had a large compound. So he made a farm and he made a concert, like a theater. So one means that children could go to do arts, and children could also be engaged in the farm. So he noticed a couple of things. These children who have mental conditions imitate a lot. So what you're doing, as in they'll just imitate what you're doing, and they will do it really nicely. He also noticed that once children were put in an environment that they performed nicely, or there was no competition, they would perform good. This means that in a normal classroom, these children would not perform well, because the metrics of gauging success were based on number 1, number 2, number 3. You scored 90, I scored 80. But now in this other setting of this home was, you like music, these are the people you'll be doing music with. You like art and craft, here are your people. Those, as in, and because there was no competition that was making these children strain, they were found to be doing well. And then there was also the whole aspect of going for shopping with these children. It also improved their social skills. Eventually, John came to pass away, and he was cremated, and his ashes were stored in the No-Mansfield Home. And later, his wife would die, and she was also cremated, and their ashes were thrown away together. The term Mongoloids, or the Mongols, because now anybody who was found to have this condition was called a Mongol, a Mongoloid child. That term stuck until the 1960s, you can imagine. And when it got to the 1960-61, the Chinese and Japanese research people or scientists felt that this term was wrong because it was racist. Just because these people had physical features that made them resemble the Mongoloids or the Mongols did not mean that this disease or condition had to be called a Mongoloid disease condition, sorry, because it came out as racial. So what do? They go back to the grandson of John and ask him to allow them to call this condition, to name this condition after his grandfather. So the grandfather, the full name of John was John Langdon Down. Okay, so now they would name this syndrome as the syndrome of Down. So that is how now they came to call the condition Down syndrome. You get? Because it is the syndrome of Down. And by the time they are coming to call this condition the syndrome of Down, they had already discovered that it is not idiocy or being a lunatic that makes these children look the way they look. It is simply having extra genetic material in the chromosome number 21 that makes them look the way they were. Instead of having two number 21 chromosomes, you have 3 number 21 chromosomes. So the people who do not refer to this condition as Down syndrome, they refer to it as trisomy 21. So it means that there is trisomy 21. There are 3 chromosomes of number 21. Yeah. So this is the history of Down syndrome, like how it was discovered, and all the way to how the name Down syndrome got coined. So I hope you learned a thing or two, and I'm so glad that you stayed and watched until the end. I would also like to request you to share with me your opinion. I want to know your questions, like what would you like us to talk about? Yeah, and we'll see what we can do. Until next time, have a good time, subscribe to my channel. Yeah, and let's grow together.